Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, and in the world, West Alabama, downtown Northport, wherever you're watching the Joe Gaither Show. We appreciate everybody checking us out. You're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You're listening to us on Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. Anywhere that you get your podcasts, you can hear the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. And, of course, follow BamaCentral. We are the Sports Illustrated home for your Alabama Crimson Tide. I am, of course, Joe Gaither. You guys can follow me at Joe Gaither6 on all the social media machines, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, wherever you want to connect with me. It's at Joe Gaither6. You can send me your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. And we are very, very excited for today's program. I am very, very blessed to be joined by Kirk Bohls of the Austin American-Statesman. He's been covering the Texas Longhorns for quite a while, and so we are welcoming Kirk Bohls into the program to give some expertise because it's not an exciting week or anything. Alabama's not playing a huge game, not the biggest game in college football. You got College Game Day in town, SEC Nation is in town, Barstool Sports is coming to town, Late Kick Josh, and I'm sure our man Kirk Bohls is coming to town as well. Make sure you read him at thestatesman.com or follow him at KBohls on the Twitter machine for all of his great Texas coverage. Kirk, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, glad to be with you, Joe. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I had a great time this morning listening to Nick Saban and Jalen Milroe and Terry and Arnold. So I had a great start to my Labor Day. We're going to run this on Tuesday, but we're recording on Monday afternoon. Kirk, did you guys have media availability with Steve Sarkisian and some players today? How did that go, and how's your day going?
Well, we just finished here. It's about 4 o'clock here in Austin, and we talked to probably about 8 players and Coach Sarkisian. So we got a good feel for their mindset going into this. So, yes, ought to be an epic battle.
Oh, absolutely. Last year's game was incredible. 20-19 came down to the wire, and really either side could have walked away with a victory. So I'm really looking forward to this year's game. I'll just start with an easy general question. How hungry is Texas? How hungry are the Longhorns to get some revenge after last year's ball game?
Well, let's put it this way, Joe. I mean, this is year 3 for Steve Sarkisian, and he's still needing that signature win that he really hadn't had. He hadn't won the Big 12 yet, and they haven't won the Big 12 since 2009. But Sarkisian's still looking for that signature win. They smashed Oklahoma last year, 49-0. But as we all knew, Sooners weren't very good last year, finishing with a losing season at 6-7. So, I think they're Texas is kind of minding its manners, trying to avoid any bulletin board material, as you know, both sides will. So, but yeah, they're ready, and I think they bring some a certain degree of confidence. The fact that they played them wire to wire last year.
Oh, absolutely, and really, many people you can make an argument that Texas should have won that game. Maybe a call here, a call there, and things would have gone a little differently. Or a healthy Quinn Ewers, I think, would have made a huge difference throughout the rest of the game. I want to just talk about Sarkisian. You said he's been in there for 3 years, and obviously all the Alabama fans know him from his great season in 2020 directing the Alabama offense. Been covering Texas for a long time. What's the biggest difference that you have noticed from Steve Sarkisian and all really the Alabama connections, Jeff Banks, Kyle Flood, Bo Davis, kind of the Alabama connections? What's the biggest difference that Steve Sarkisian has brought to the Texas Longhorns program over the last 3 years?
Probably maybe a sophistication to the offense, maybe a much more better organized. He's built the roster in a way that he didn't like when he got here from Alabama. They've got 17 offensive linemen on scholarship. Back when Tom Herman was here, they'd have like 20 scholarship wide receivers. So I don't think they had the makeup that Sarkisian wanted when he got here, 2 years plus ago. So I think in knowing that, they were going to the SEC next year, he's tried to build that roster and be better and bigger up front on both sides of the ball. I think that's probably the biggest difference between Sark and Tom Herman, his predecessor.
Well, we're really looking forward to this weekend's game, but we already got to see each team play a subpar opponent. Alabama taking care of MTSU, and Texas taking care of Rice. And a lot of the Alabama side over the last 30 hours or so is they only beat Rice 37-10. And I've got the game on DVR. I've looked at it just a teeny tiny bit, but obviously I'm counseling the Alabama faithful to not really take the Rice matchup too seriously. What did you see? What did you make from the first week with Texas and then the new look, new year Texas Longhorns?
Well, it was a struggle for the first half, and I know Texas fans were very uneasy when it was a 16-3 score at halftime. I don't think anybody ever really feared that Rice would beat them, but still, you want to look better than that. You know, you're a top 10, top 12 team in the country. You should come out and take command and show you're the better team, like Alabama did with Middle Tennessee State. So the offensive line didn't give a real good account of himself, and they had everybody back. It wasn't a great offensive line last year, but it was made a lot better with Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson running behind it. So I think there's a lot of disappointment in the offensive line. The running game wasn't as dominant as they wanted, and Quinn, even though he had a great second half, he had 3 touchdown passes and ran for another. He had a slow start in the first half, and he wasn't real successful on the deep ball. He was like 0 for 7 on passes of 20 yards or more. So there were enough things that went wrong, and the final score probably made Texas fans a little bit more nervous, and they wanted to be after week 1.
We're talking to Kirk Bohls of the Austin American-Statesman. Please follow him at KBohls on the Twitter machine and read him at statesman.com. That's a perfect transition. Obviously, no Roshan Johnson or Bijan Robinson. I am, sidebar, a Chicago Bears fan, so I'm excited about Roshan's new career. But how are the Texas Longhorns replacing that production? You get C.J. Baxter, a 5-star, 4-star running back. You got Jaden Blue and Jonathan Banks, who took major carries. What is your perspective on replacing such strong running backs?
Well, C.J. Baxter, as you mentioned, was the true freshman coming in from Orlando, Florida, and big upside. And we thought, boy, he's really coming on fast. Well, he started the game at tailback. I think that surprised us a little bit that he might ease him in a little bit more. But Jonathan Brooks is a very good player. He's his third year here he was from nearby Hallettsville here in Texas, and a really good running back. But it seems like Baxter just got that little extra burst, a little bit more explosive. Brooks is a good running back, a really good receiver. He scored another touchdown pass on a catch in the flat, and Jaden Blue is a second-year guy who's also good. And then Keelan Robinson, the former Crimson Tide player. He's a change-of-pace guy, really fast. Also is a kickoff return guy. So I think they like what they have at running back. I think they just wish the offensive line would have blocked a little better for them.
Well, that's Kyle Flood's specialty, and he came from Alabama, and really Texas got a lot of notoriety 2-3 years ago with the Pancake Factory kind of NIL deal. How would you say? I mean, the offensive line has grown. You noted the scholarship numbers has grown under the Sarkisian Flood faction, and really secondarily, a lot of people are Texas buy-in players, which I don't have a problem with. How would you say the NIL has affected that Texas offensive line?
Well, you can say it was the Pancake Factory. It seemed like a little bit more of a waffle factory because they kind of waffled between just decent and okay
Sure.
in game 1. So, but they got a left tackle who is a sophomore now. He started as a true freshman, Kelvin Banks, and he's going to be an NFL player. He may be the only one they got. I don't know, but they haven't had great offensive lines the last 20 years. So everybody returned intact, a couple freshmen, a couple sophomores, and a senior. And it's the interior of the line that's kind of been their Achilles heel. They're 2 guards and center. And so that's resulted in some more pass rush and pass heat on Quinn Ewers than they would like. And then just haven't seen the gaping holes created for running lanes for Jaden Blue and C.J. Baxter and Jonathan Brooks. So that's a work in progress. And like I said earlier, I think that was the biggest disappointment coming out of the Rice game.
Well, last year's game, obviously, we've hit on it just a little bit. It was very close, 1-point game. But through the early part of the game, while Quinn Ewers was healthy, from the Alabama's perspective, it kind of seemed like Steve Sarkisian had the Alabama number, had Pete Golding and Nick Saban's number dialed up and dialed in. Do you expect we heard from Steve Sarkisian yesterday at halftime for FSU and LSU, and he was very respectful and such. But maybe people asked him, the host asked him how excited he was or how much he watched last year's game. Do you expect Steve Sarkisian to still have that magic touch or still have a good feel for, oh, this is how I'm going to attack the Alabama defense? Yes, it's a new defensive coordinator, but the system is still the same. What's
Mhm.
your expectation of Steve Sarkisian being able to draw up a game plan that really threatens and attacks the Alabama defense?
It's going to be a little bit harder without Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, to be honest with you, because you want to keep the offense on the field as long as you can. And I don't know if you're going to be able to sustain a lot of drives if the Texas offensive line is not better. Quinn's very good at screen passes, short passes, intermediate passes, working over the middle. Xavier Worthy is a guy who had 21 touchdowns his first 2 years here. Had 1,000-yard season as a freshman and just under that last year. So Xavier Worthy he's kind of a spindly guy, but he gets open. He's got good speed and really good hands. And then A.D. Mitchell, you might be aware of, the Georgia receiver who had touchdowns in both playoff games last year, is a transfer. He's their number 2 guy. And then Jordan Whittington's a slot receiver who's very dangerous, and Jatavian Sanders is a tight end who may be up for a lot of awards. He could be considered maybe a first-round draft pick as a tight end. I'm not saying he's Brock Bowers, but he's very good. So I think they want to just keep them off balance. And like he said today, he said, we want to be able to run the ball when teams know we're going to run the ball. And that's what they didn't do against Rice, and that's what they haven't done for a big part of Steve's 2-year era here. So, but I think he's going to want a balanced attack. I don't know. The word is Alabama's got some injuries in that secondary, so maybe they think they can exploit that area of the field with Quinn Ewers.
Yes, Coach Saban acknowledging Jalen Key, the transfer from UAB, and both Malachi Moore are day to day. They had good starts to the game, but left the game, and so that he acknowledged they were day to day and said it'll be interesting to see how they progress through the week. They're not practicing today, so that's really kind of the status right there with the DBs. You're exactly right. That'll be
Yeah.
a little nerve wracking for the for the Alabama faithful. Let me ask you about just an interesting aspect from last year. And I just saw some news maybe an hour or two ago. A lot of Alabama fans were so upset. Oh my gosh, they're putting our band in the top deck, blah, blah, blah. And so the band didn't go. The band didn't go to Austin.
Right.
And obviously that became a thing. Well, I read about an hour and a half ago that Greg Byrne has decided to return the favor and stick the Texas band up in the top deck due to it not being an SEC matchup where Alabama's not obligated to put them in the bottom deck like they are with the other SEC opponents. What do you make of the petty nature that's already kind of stirred up between both sides, but even before they become league opponents?
Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So, you know what's ironic about that, Joe, is that Greg Byrne and Chris Del Conte are good friends. They're big buddies. Scott Strickland, the Florida AD's in that same club. So I'm sure they don't mind gigging each other a little bit. But I don't blame Alabama for doing what Texas did to them. So I don't know if that's going to make any difference on the outcome of the game. But it won't be the first time that Texas and Alabama are going to wrangle either on the field or in the boardroom for sure.
Absolutely. Alabama's likely starting quarterback, started this past week and came out to media sessions today, which signaled to me, ma'am, he's been kind of already chosen for the future. Jalen Milroe is from Texas, and really, for a while, for a minute of his high school recruitment, he was committed to Texas, then flipped to Alabama. He has acknowledged that there are Texas fans in his family, and says, "Oh, my first jersey was a Vince Young jersey. Grew up kind of admiring Vince Young." Have you been able to see a little bit of the first game or see Jalen Milroe's performance? And secondarily, how would you say or how would you guess that Pete Kwiatkowski is going to attack the Alabama offense?
I thought Bryce Young had left. I didn't know he was just wearing a new jersey this year. So, yeah, I was quite impressed with Jalen. And like I said, dual threat quarterbacks, defensive coordinators just hate that. Pete Kwiatkowski is going to be, burning the midnight oil to get ready for him. Off schedule plays are what scare defensive coordinators to death. And that's the kind of player Jalen Milroe is. What's interesting is that Quinn Ewers, like Jalen Milroe, was a UT commit. Before he changed his mind, he went to Ohio State for a year, didn't play. Yeah, it was in like 2 games for a couple mop-up snaps and stuff before he came back to Texas. So Yeah, that's not that unusual. We asked Quinn about it, and he didn't remember too much about that. But Quinn does not have the athletic skills that Jalen Milroe does. He does not have the legs. He's lost like 20 pounds. Some of us worry
And he
maybe
lost the mullet.
he lost the mullet. He's got a burr haircut, and they said he's not going to Chick-fil-A anymore. And lost. He looks. I'm not going to say he looks skinny, but he looks very lean, and we wonder if he's a little bit too undersized to take the pounding that quarterbacks are going to take, in high-level games like this. So um, I asked Jalen Ford, the Texas All-American linebacker. I said, "You going to plan to spy on Jalen Milroe?" And he said, might not. I don't know. Nobody wants to tip their hand." But he said they didn't spy that much against Bryce Young last year. We all remember the play where he evaded the blitz by Ryan Watson, who is back, by the way. They didn't bring him today. So, but yeah, I think corralling Jalen Milroe, containing him, keeping him in the pocket where he's going to have to make maybe more than one read and throw is probably what they're going to want to do. They do not want him to spring loose and be running in space. I think that's Pete Kwiatkowski's worst nightmare.
It was kind of magical watching the first touchdown. I was in the upper deck, and he has a bad snap, and he goes back and picks it up and gets in trouble and runs for a 25-yard touchdown. And I was just like, that's the factor that you can't really plan for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you got defensive backs running downfield. And a lot of times if it's man-to-man, they're running with their backs, to the line of scrimmage. So all that plays into it. And it'll be interesting how they attack that.
Absolutely. I'm very blessed to have Kirk Bohls join me from the Austin American-Statesman. You can follow him on Twitter at KBohls on the Twitter machine. What about a Jeff Banks story? You've been covering him now for 3 years. Jeff Banks is kind of a wild man, and obviously we had him here in Tuscaloosa. Great recruiter, really nice special teams coordinator, tight end coach. What's been your experience with Jeff Banks, and do you have any off-the-wall Jeff Banks stories that you may remember or be able to share?
Probably none that I can tell on air, but yeah, he's quite the character, as you said. He's kind of a wild cannon there. One thing, we want to get to talk to him once a year. Very much like Sark. We don't the coordinators for him and Saban are off limits, so we get him in August. The DC and the OC and the special teams coordinator Jeff Banks one time. So the only thing I'd share is that we asked him about Keelan Robinson. He said, "What do you think about Keelan Robinson?" I said, "Well, for one thing, he's a smart ass." And he said, "And I like that because he knows all the answers." So Jeff's kind of a smart ass himself. So we also asked him about Tuscaloosa when Texas goes there during the season, since we won't get to talk to him this week. And he said, "Yeah, you just got to look at it like another game, like it's at Kansas or Iowa State." And we're going, "Huh? Like at Kansas?" I don't think so. But yeah, he's a character. So, he'll have the special teams worked up for this game.
Absolutely.
And you got a great kicker. Bert Auburn's back. And so that could be it comes down to the last play as well. They remember Will Reichard all too well.
That'd be an extra dig to Alabama fans having a kicker named Auburn who kick a winning kick if that's what happens on Saturday.
That'd be salt in the wound, wouldn't
it? Absolutely. I really appreciate your time today. We've been we're ready for the Texas week. One thing that I noticed about last year was the Texas fan base seemed, and this is more of a compliment, not a detraction, seemed very angry or hostile, really in the crowd, and really I think that affected the ball game in a big way. Terry and Arnold today talked about how it was hot and my cleats were melting, but then was talking about the crowd affecting the environment. Called it a shaky environment. Is that usually how the Texas games go? Because here in Tuscaloosa, we get that maybe once a season, maybe twice a season. It's very, and I don't mean to disrespect the Alabama fans, but it's very highbrow football fans sit on their hands and only cheer for the touchdowns kind of a thing, and just, oh, you better play well and then I'll cheer for you. Just what was your experience like watching the ball game last year, just as a atmosphere perspective?
Well, I do think it was a lot more electric than most games, just because of the two participants and the whole Texas going to SEC side issue. But when you were describing Alabama fans, you could have been describing Longhorn fans too, because they get their tea sipper reputation from the Aggies, and they know how to sit on their hands here. It's more of a wine and cheese crowd than it's not exactly Baton Rouge or Death Valley. I'll put it that way. So yeah, I think Texas and Alabama fans probably have a lot in common, even though Alabama fans have much more reason to be spoiled the last 20 years.
What's your perspective of Texas getting into it's the last year in the Big 12, and Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark had some spicy comments towards the remaining members, saying go beat Texas and Oklahoma on their last year. What's your kind of feel as conference realignment or a new conference is on the horizon for you guys?
Well, we've been wanting it to happen for at least 2 years, if not 20. We feel like it fits in terms of not always in terms of culture, because you know, like Sark said today, it's like Alabama fans, they don't have pro sports for the most part, and so they all adopt Alabama. In Texas, we've got three NBA teams, two Major League Baseball teams, two NFL teams. Go down the list: hockey, soccer, you name it. So you have a lot more divided loyalties, but the fans were so ready for this. It's just, with all due respect to the Iowa States and the West Virginias, is that the fans don't get excited about that coming in. So like next year, they play Oklahoma as usual, and then they play Arkansas and A&M, their old Southwest Conference rivals, and you got Georgia and Florida coming in. So it's just such a different dynamic, and it's just people just can't wait. They can't wait, and it's kind of cool that we get a couple of Texas Alabama games before it all happens for real.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the SEC fans, or a lot of the talk that I have been hearing is, oh, they're going to see they're not as good as they think once they get to the league. Do you think that Texas is prepared for the SEC?
I don't think anybody can be prepared for the SEC. I mean, when you have games like that every week, and like A&M has found out what that's like. They've come in and struggled. And yeah, they've beaten Alabama a couple times and beat LSU last year. So they've won games, but they haven't won their division. They're played in the SEC title game, like Missouri did a couple of years. So I think they're ready. They're more ready for it emotionally. They're more ready for it from a roster makeup like Sark has
Good.
in place, but they don't have that elite talent up front yet, all O line and D line. And that's primarily what separates the SEC from the rest of the country, I think. They still got a long way to go there. But in terms of just interest and buzz and excitement, it's off the charts right now.
Awesome. Excellent. One big player, well, one future big player that really has a small connection to Alabama and Texas, especially from the recruiting trail this past year, was Arch Manning. Now, he didn't play in the first game, but I've heard buzz that the last handful of weeks have been really good for Arch Manning. They're picking things up. I think a lot of people, oh, he's going to Texas. He's got a big NIL deal running from Alabama. That's just the Alabama, fan
Right.
perspective. What have you seen out of Arch so far? And obviously, it's Quinn Ewers' job, and Malik Murphy came in relief. But how do you expect him, or how is he fitting in with the Texas quarterback room?
Well, he seemed to fit in really well, and they probably have as much quarterback depth as maybe they've ever had. But
Sure.
he's sitting number 3 right now, and I think he's comfortable with that. I don't think anybody, especially in the Manning family, thought they would come in and get an immediate playing time since Quinn was the incumbent. I think he's big guy. He's really big. He's not Malik Murphy big, who's just looks like he could play defensive end. He's so big and has the strongest arm. Quinn Ewers, probably has the third strongest arm, on the roster behind Malik number 1 and Arch number 2. So he's looked good in the limited time we've been able to see him. He had a great run, about 50 yards in a scrimmage. Of course, he couldn't tackle him, so we don't know if he'd have gone down after 15 yards or not. But and Sark has said he's probably grown so much more from spring to an early September now than a lot of players. So everybody's still kind of giddy over the fact that he's here, and
Should be.
he'll get his time on the field. There's no question about that.
Well, everybody knows that Quinn Ewers left the game last year, and then if you go back to 2009, you had the Colt McCoy leave the game with injury. Obviously, Colt McCoy never got his chance to kind of come back and play Alabama in another year. You left him to the NFL, great career, awesome career. What's been your flavor or feel from Quinn Ewers realizing, oh man, we were really kind of controlling that game before I got hurt, and oh, I have a huge opportunity in front of me to kind of really elevate my own name. I mean, the people who follow football know Quinn Ewers, but as far as public, just public perception, he has a huge opportunity to elevate his own name with Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. You've already hit the receivers. What do you think Quinn Ewers' mindset is coming into Tuscaloosa?
I think he wants it, but he's a hard guy to pry into because he's a very quiet, seems like an introverted kind of guy. He doesn't have the presence of Vince Young or a Colt McCoy or players like that. So a lot of us are, doubt isn't the right word, but he doesn't really assert himself either vocally or as a leader. So, and again, he's not the athlete Milrow is, but he's got a real easy release. He sometimes throws too much on his back foot, so his accuracy on his deep balls have been lacking, the first year plus that we've seen Quinn Ewers. So, yeah, he wants it, but then the fact that he cut off his hair and lost 20 pounds kind of shows his commitment. And I think, with the mullet and everything, Sark's kind of addressed that and says, this is more of a maturity about him, more of a poise about him that I think he likes. I don't think he'll get overly nervous, at Tuscaloosa on Saturday. Doesn't mean he's going to get it done, but yeah, he's said over and over how much more comfortable he is this year two in the system.
Well, I'm really excited for this weekend's game. A lot of people have talked about Steve Sarkisian being under pressure at Texas. Now, obviously, the Texas job is a hugely high profile job, one of the top 2 or 3 jobs in the country in college football. Stark went 8-5 last year. Unfortunately, lost the bowl game. Really, outside of this game, you mentioned how it's a great chance to get a very signature win. Is Sarkisian under pressure, or is that silly inside the Alabama bubble perspective?
Well, if he's not under pressure, he doesn't know where he is because, like you say, it is Texas, and even though they're one of the top 5, 6 winningest programs in all-time history, they haven't gotten it done. They haven't won 10 games in a regular season since 2009 when they played Alabama for the national title. So they've been struggling and they've been wandering in the wilderness because the end of Mac Brown era didn't end great, and then the Charlie Strong experiment ended after 3 years. Tom Herman won 4 bowl games in 4 years, but couldn't really get him over the hump to win the Big 12. So yeah, I don't think he's on the hot seat, barring a catastrophic season. If he went 6-6 or something like that, maybe they would revisit that. But they want him to succeed. They like what he's done with the program. They feel like he's heading in the right direction, but ultimately you got to see results, right?
Absolutely. Well, the recruiting has been there, especially the 23 class and the 24 class is starting to look pretty nicely. But as we kind of wrap up right here, Kirk, and I really appreciate your time. We've been talking to Kirk Bohls from the Austin American-Statesman. Please follow him at KBohls on the Twitter machine or read his great work at statesman.com. What's your kind of feel or perspective about the game coming to Tuscaloosa, and just kind of, I don't know if you're into predictions at all, just kind of what do you think is going to kind of happen on Saturday night?
That's a great question, Joe. I was kind of on record as picking a 11-1 season, and not that Rice talks me off of that ledge, but they didn't look like 11-1 season. That was pretty obvious. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to look just so and still win by an easy margin. So I picked them to beat Alabama in the preseason. So my buddies are going to make me stick to that. They said I can't get off the bandwagon that quick. So I think they can win. I think Alabama's clearly the better team right now, but they were the better team when they came into Memorial Stadium last year and came within a field goal of losing. So unfortunately, I'm going to stick with Texas to say pull off the impossible and get it done. But it ought to be a heck of a battle.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, last year you get a missed call or a made call on a safety.
Bill Anderson kept the
Yes.
goal and just
So it could have gone either way. And
3 or
it
4
really
plays. You're right.
Alabama fans have go, oh, well, we just played bad. They're not that good. If we play better,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, though, you got to give credit to the other side and the
Right.
preparation, the Texas. I mean, that early part of the game, even with Quinn Ewers,
Yeah.
the defense was on their heels. I feel like you're lucky you have a Dallas
Yeah.
Turner sack. So we'll see. I'm excited for it.
And that's
All right,
what
when are you making your way to Tuscaloosa?
get over there Friday afternoon late. One thing I had mentioned is Texas defense
Please.
really well against Rice. Their defensive line looks like maybe the strength of this team. Got a lot of depth in there. Jalen Ford's an All-American linebacker. He's had 7 takeaways his last 8 games. So their defense is going to have to play, the A game for them to kind of keep Texas in the hunt and have any chance to win this. But like I say, we could pick apart 6 plays. Quinn Ewers getting hurt, Bryce Young scramble, Will Anderson block field goal, Will Reichert's kick, things like that. And I expect nothing less than this game.
I do too. I think it's going to be a huge blast. And Kirk, I really appreciate your time. I hope you enjoy your time in Tuscaloosa. I'll send some of my colleagues, my BamaCentral colleagues, by to say hello. I really appreciate your time. I'm on the low end of their totem pole now, so I'll be up in the upper deck, sipping my wine and cheese, watching the game. Kirk, thank you so much for your time, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Bye bye.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Bye bye. Yes, sir. That's Kirk Bohls joining me on the Joe Gaither Show right here, and I really appreciate his time. I mean, expertise. He's been writing for the Statesman since 1973. College football expertise. You're not going to get any more inside than Kirk Bohls. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at KBohls on Twitter. Read him at statesman.com. So I'm going to go ahead and take a pin for the day. I might put a little back-end content on here. I'm going to work on something. Like I said, we're working with this. This interview was filmed on Monday. It's going to be airing on Tuesday. There might be a little back-end content of a little funny. If not, it will air on Wednesday. I'm going to build a little funny segment. It might air on Tuesday or it might air on Wednesday. We'll see. But I'm going to go off on the assumption that this is going to be the end of our program on Tuesday. I really appreciate Kirk Bohls joining us. You can follow him again at KBohls on the Twitter machine. I am, of course, at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social medias. It's going to be a great weekend. Oh, it's going to be a great weekend ahead. Texas is coming to town. You guys need to get your butt to Tuscaloosa. Follow us at BamaCentral.com. Follow our friends Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, Blue Collar Unplugged, at Writing Walsh for Chris Walsh. We are at BamaCentral on all of the social medias, at BamaCentral SI on Instagram. And we love you guys the most. We're excited about this week. We hope you are too. Leave us a comment. Tell Kirk you said hello. And really, let's have a big Roll Tide weekend with Alabama and Texas coming into town this coming up weekend. I'm so excited for it, and I hope you are too. Stay with us right here on the Joe Gaither Show. We'll be back tomorrow for another edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral at BamaCentral.com.
I just don't give Coach speed.
Our fans were elite tonight. I'll be honest with you, I was concerned about complacency among our team, but I was also concerned about complacency among our crowd.
It just speaks to the love and passion of the Auburn family.
So they kind of answered the bell the way we wanted them to.
Certainly want to thank our fans. What an environment that was tonight, throughout the day.
We're just so thankful for our crowd.
It's been a long off season.
And certainly we had a lot of cats out there. First game for the Gators.
Obviously, there's things to get better. We all know that.
We, as coaches, have to coach better.
And we got an opportunity to improve on a lot of things and get better.
I thought the guys played hard.
Did I have a thought on it?
The buck stops with me.
We got to do a better job of coaching. We got to do a better job of executing.
We're going to coach better and play better in the future.
There's a lot of things we need to clean up.
We got to play better, got to coach better.
But there's no question that we can coach better and play better today.
We certainly are not the football team that I thought we were.
Got to get a lot better.
We obviously got things that we need to work on.
Got to play better, got to coach better.
We got to get better all the way around the board.
I don't know. Not good enough. Got to play better, got to coach better.
Well, that took a long time.
Love that kid.
His heart and soul's in it.
I do take pride in being a relational coach.
He really tonight showed a lot of toughness, a lot of grit.
There's a lot of hidden things he did for us on that football team, and blocks and calls and checks and routes and the way.
I love Waffle House.
It's kind of the story of the night. Clock was wrong the whole game. We're trying to kick an onside kick to start the second half, and we got to wait on the chain crew because they're eating a hot dog.
I know you guys have a job to do, and you know how much I love you and want you to help you do your job and, all that.
Love the way he competes.
He's a competitor.
Gus and Christy love Waffle House, and we do too. It's a good spot.
Let's wait for the chain crew to finish eating their hot dogs.
Just got to keep on working on it.
Try not to have too many meetings with the players because you'll drive them crazy.
Making sure these guys understood, we got a game to play to get to 1-0.
Experience is basically an accumulation of things that you learn from the mistakes that you make. That's what experience is.
Some guy, they hit you in the head. You don't do anything.
Because when you get the last possession, the first possession, you can go 14-0.
At the end of the day, we had to make a decision who went first.
They have to get back to the practice field, and
We're going to grind tomorrow and get ready for Ball State.
And they're going to go back to work.
Go to work this week and, just get all our players better.
I mean, it wasn't like they were trying to point shave or something.
You know, we had the ball 5 times, scored 5 drives.
this is a total failure on a coaching standpoint and a player standpoint.
Start of the game was like the perfect storm of everything that couldn't go wrong, went wrong.
I did think we had some players grow up out there today.
Well, it's valuable because their parents are here and their girlfriends are here.
I thought they grew up tonight.
We had some guys that had to come out and were able to go back, some that weren't able to go back.
And I've got, I think, 34 uncles here. And
Tonka, Boogie, TJ.
Nice, Moose, Jade.
sharing special moments with people that you care about and that you want to serve and please.
Yeah, I'm quite aware of the score.
I was just excited we won by a lot, before I got that question.
Lucky is what it was, but he's going to think he did really good.
But we want to play and do what's right for the whole team.
We're a little bit illegal.
Obviously, the goal is to win the game. But
I'm never going to apologize for a win.
well, I said on the headset, we paid a lot of money, Pete, for you, and that's not exactly what we're expecting.
So we have high expectations.
That wasn't a real good start.
I sensed it. I felt it.
And so I promised them, if you'll just come to the sideline, I'll do whatever dance you want me to do and look like a fool.
Not one of these guys that wants to celebrate because they make a first down and, do some big dance. So really good to see receivers like this.
Dadgummit, I'm going to enjoy, at least for a few hours, the fact that our team, our staff, found a way to win a football game in college.
Yeah, that's a big challenge.
For some reason, we thought we were somebody else. We thought we were the 2-time national champion Georgia Bulldogs or something. I don't know what we thought, but we were mistaken.
We would like to have leads like this and play everybody. That would be good in every game.
Figure out, who we are and where we go from here.
We are who we are.
Is this who we want to be?
You find out who you really are, in difficult times.
It could be anxiety.
I think he prepared really well.
It could be the team we play.
New Mexico is a tough team to prepare for.
Those guys play hard.
The Gators weren't good enough tonight.
When you had an interception in college off a tip ball, did you think you were a good player?
Yeah, I did.
And they tell me the chain crew's not out there because I don't know what they're doing.
Transfer portal, it was good. Like I said, it was good to us.
I mean, that's day one stuff.
I got a lot of interceptions in college that were tip balls.
And I enjoyed going to the student section.
Supposed to get him off.
And sloppy in seconds.
Sometimes it pays to be lucky.
He had a pocket, and he had a clean pocket.
Keep him clean in the future.
We had time to throw the football.
Everybody just thinks you're going to walk out there and just roll over these teams.
How many interference calls did we get?
So you're asking me to speculate, and I answer a hypothetical question about how some guy's going to perform in the future. I don't really know.
And that's unacceptable from a coaching standpoint.
This is a Coke bottle, it's not a crystal ball.
I think I'll be able to tell you more after we watch the tape.
It's just called dime. It's just called dime. 6 DBs out there. We've done it every year since we've been here. Nothing special about it.
With all the injuries and banged and bruised.
There's going to be a ton of teachable moments for a lot of young players.
I want to grow and get better.
And we'll see more when we go back to watch the tape.
It was excellent. Had fun. A lot of fun.
We'll have a little bit better look at it when we watch the tape. I'll be able to answer that for you once we get back and look at the tape.
Do we have any stats? Anybody?
We're better than the guys we played against.
How do you think of play? You have any idea?
That is an obvious question.
Hard to know.
I've never been smart enough to figure that out.
No, I don't know that there was much more else that they could have done.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Pretty good.